Today is November 29th, 2012, and we are interviewing Robert Henry at the Illinois State Library. Mr. Henry is 84 years old, having been born on October 12, 1928. My name is Cheryl Walker, and I'll be interviewing. Mr. Henry, could you state for the record what war and branch of service you served in?
I got drafted in November of 1950. And I trained at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri as a combat engineer. And then I was sent to Alaska by a quirk of fate. They took 25 of us for replacements, and we worked north of Ladd Field, which is 130 miles from the Arctic Circle, with the Army engineers.
Did you get immersed in this culture where you were stationed at?
The culture?
Mm-hmm.
I had the fortune of staying with an Eskimo family for a month. I took leave, and it cost too much to fly home, so I stayed with them. And they have an interesting culture. We went to the movies downtown, and the boys are on one side and the girls on the other side because they're not permitted to sit side by side. Now, there was a lot of chit chat across the aisle, but that was it. I thought that was kind of interesting. And he was a registered Alaskan guide, so he took me out hunting and fishing, and I was lucky enough to get a moose, 1,600 pounds. As a native there, you're only allowed to take one moose. So he had a big family, so we donated all the meat. I thought that was a very interesting time spent.
Did you learn any of the language up there?
No, it's too complex. We got the news in Eskimo. We never knew if it was going to rain or snow or what. But it's a very hostile environment because summertime is about 4 weeks. That's it. The ice on the river, the Chena River, never melted in the middle of July. And then you had August, and when September started, it was snowing. It snowed all September, October, November, December. January got so cold it quit snowing. And then you had 24 hours of darkness. And then, of course, in the longest day in the year, they started a baseball game at midnight in Fairbanks. We had a new replacement come in, and he went downtown, and of course, during the summertime, the sun never goes down completely. So he never knew it was a different day. He came back and he was AWOL one day because he said the sun never went down. Yeah. But anyway.
How did you learn to, when it was time to sleep, turn off and be able to close your eyes and be able to sleep when it was still light out?
Well, we hung blankets over the windows so you'd get, cut off the light.
Did you sleep in barracks?
Yeah, we took over the buildings that were put up by the engineers during World War II, and they were condemned. All we had was a frame building, studs and siding, no insulation. And we had what they call a cannon heater for heat, which is a coal stove. And we burned soft coal. They wouldn't buy us hard coal, so used to build up the smoke and blow the lid off the stove. And we had a trooper, a soldier that had a bed right next to the stove. He blew the lid off and hit him in the head. So the following night, he put a steel helmet on as protection. But we fixed the building, we insulated it, and then the infantry wanted to take it over. And the captain says, no way, this is ours because we fixed it. But for entertainment, there wasn't much entertainment there. They showed movies in a Quonset hut, but there was a hole in the roof, which we never patched, and we had to sit on garbage pails. There were no seats in this place. And when they showed a movie of a Western and some guy crawling across the desert, the snow was coming down in front of the screen, and and then the thing would freeze up, and that was the end of the movie. But downtown Fairbanks consisted of 14 log cabins, a trading post run by the Eskimos, and a bank. That's all that was there. I've been back since. Now there's 80,000 people in Fairbanks. Why they stay there, I don't know.
Did you bank there?
No. We had soldiers' deposits that were held by the service, and we couldn't spend our money on anything. If you went downtown, the beer was $1 for a beer in 1950. You could buy it on base for $0.25. So most of us stayed at the base. Friday night was dance with your buddy night, you know, just to break up the monotony. So.
Did you bring any mementos home?
Yeah, I brought a moose horn home, the one I shot. So.
Do you still have that?
Oh yeah.
What was your job up there?
Oh, I ran a supply dump. That's funny too, because when we got off the ship, we got on a railroad that went from the port up to Fairbanks. It took us 3 days to make the trip. You had to stop and let the moose cross the road or tracks and so on. Anyway, it took 3 days. The cars had a kerosene lamp hanging on the wall. They had a coal stove in the middle. They had 3 bunks that made up the seats turned into bunks. Red velvet. And I was waiting for Jesse James to walk through the door. I mean, this is a pretty old train here, even back then. But that was an interesting trip.
Did they feed you on the train?
Oh, yeah. When we got there, we were picked up by a 2.5-ton dump truck, and we went over to where the camp was. And of course, we're all standing in line, and the captain says, well, now I've lost some cooks because they went back, you know, time to rotate. I don't have a cook, so you're a cook. And the guy next to me says, well, I don't know how to cook. I'm a sheet metal man. Well, learn. I mean, that's the way it went. So before I could pick up my bag and step back, you know, he comes over, he says, now you're a clerk. I said, I don't even know how to type. Learn. You know, that kind of thing. Of course, I had a pretty good job. I was inside. Inside, yeah. Well, they turned the heat off because they're afraid of fire at night. So I had to get started in the morning. Now, this stove that I had was an oil burner with a stanchion outside the building, 55-gallon drum. You had to take a blowtorch and heat the oil so it would run downhill so you could burn it. Fluorescent lights don't work. They buzz. The gas condenses and they don't function. The typewriter was frozen solid. You had to put it on top of the stove and thaw it out. By noon, you could use it. So it wasn't very much fun working in those kind of conditions.
Did they supply you with the type of clothes that you needed to survive in that?
Yes. They were good for we had boots that were good for 65 below. We call them bunny boots. They were made out of a heavy felt. And then you had layers of material protecting your foot on the bottom. And you would put on a light sock, an Arctic sock, all over that, and then you slipped it into a felt liner, and all that went inside the boot. And now the first day we were there, they loaded us up, and they took us out in the boondocks, and they said, now, this is what they call Arctic Indoctrination Night. Now, we're going to leave you here, and we'll be back in 3 days. Make it. And they all went back. Now we're out there in the snow, you know, with the rucksack and Arctic sleeping bag. You had to dig a hole in the snow and put the Arctic sleeping bag inside because the snow is now an insulator. And you got in the bag, and you got undressed and zipped the bag up. We melted the snow for water. We had rations that we cooked. And we, you know, 3 days out there.
So you actually stayed out there 3 days and survived?
And they came back and got us.
Was there any?
You know, one guy had frostbite. I got my nose froze. I can't smell anything. But when you wore a coat, you know, you had a hood with a fur liner in the front, you know, and when your breath would freeze on the front of this thing and start to close up, you had to knock the ice off to get air in. But
what is the difference between an Arctic sleeping bag and a regular sleeping bag?
you know, it's built for that kind of weather.
Did you achieve any awards or medals or citations while you were up there?
No, they didn't. Well, when I was there, it was my job to, once a month I would blow the whistle and everybody would go out to the field as a training exercise in case we were attacked or something. It was my job to go into the ammo dump, which is underground, but nobody shoveled the snow out. So it was slipping and sliding all the way down. You had to open the doors and get the ammunition for the company and then go all the way up the stairs and then load the truck. Well, by the time I had it loaded and out, they'd blow the all clear. Then I'd have to come back and put the stuff back at the ammo place, lock it up, and then I could go back to the barracks. Well, it was a weightlifting thing. So I went over to main base and got some empty boxes from the ordnance company. Next time they blew the whistle, I loaded the truck with empty boxes, out to the mountain, blow the whistle. I was the first one back. Now that worked fine for a while, except some major in his little Jeep came up and said, issue the ammunition. I want to see how long it takes to issue it out. I said, well, I got a problem. What's the problem? I said, well, I don't have any ammunition. I got empty boxes. He says, what are you going to do? Throw them empty boxes at the Russians? Oh my. So I wound up in KP again, but I ate well. Well, you know, life is too short. You have to have a little levity in this thing, right?
So did you get KP duty a lot?
Yes. So I figured out, and then I had to pull K besides, doing all the work that I kept track of all the stuff coming in and going out. I had an ordnance book, you know, property book. That's the proper name for it. Oh, anyway, lost my train of thought.
So you got KP duty a lot.
Right. So now, if you're a corporal, you don't pull KP. That's why I put myself in for promotion. I backdoored them. Say, no more, you know. Then you had to stand in line to get into the cook shack. And I handled all the supplies, so I talked to those cooks over there. I said, listen, I said, you want stuff that fits? I'm not standing in line. You let me in the building. I'm not standing out there in the cold. So I kind of backdoored those people too. So I got to go in first.
So you figured out how to get around all of these rules.
To show you how messed up the Army is, I got a hold of the wax catalog. There are no women in Alaska. Okay. I ordered 4 dozen brassieres, the biggest size that was listed, and I wanted to see if the Army would make them. Guess what? I got 4 dozen humongous. And the lieutenant went by, he says, what's in the box? I said, well, I just picked it up from the railhead, but I don't know what's in it. And he said, open it up. And he takes out this thing and he's looking at it. He said, what is this, a double barrel slingshot? What are we going to do with it? Oh, anyway.
So I think those were your battle planning that you did.
Right.
Okay.
Then it was up to myself and another kid to take the laundry, and we had to cross an airstrip to get to the base laundry. Well, there's a traffic light there, and if it's red, there's an airplane either coming in or going out. Well, we sat there for a long time, and it wasn't doing anything. So we decided we're going to cross. Mistake. Here comes an attack bomber in and set fire to my canvas on the truck. And we got out, and we've got a little fire extinguisher, and you couldn't put the fire out with that. So I told this kid, I says, we better get out of here because the truck is going to explode. And it did, and it blew that laundry all over. Oh my.
How'd you explain that one?
They were going to court-martial me. I said, wait a minute, that light is malfunctioning. And it was. So I got off the hook. But everybody was short of socks. And then quartermaster changed the numbers on me. I didn't get a new catalog. I'm ordering socks for the old numbers. And they're not coming in and not coming in. And I go down there, I said, why aren't you delivering socks? He said, we had to get them made special. Why? I ordered size 10. Oh yeah, you ordered size 14s. I said, what? Wait a minute, I didn't get a new catalog. Oh, didn't we give you one? I said, no. So here this little short fella comes up and he's asking me for socks, and I hand him these 14s. He said, what am I going to do with these? He says, I need a size 10. You give me a 4. I said, cut off the end and sew it up. Everybody else has got to do that. No sense of humor, some of these people.
So I hate to ask you, but how'd you get along with your officers?
Not too well. I cleared a guy that was going to go back to the States, and he turned everything in. Well, the captain's looking this thing over, and he has to sign it. So he was short 2 pair of pants, but I got those from the Air Force anyway, and it covered my loss. You know, you barter because sometimes you don't get what you're supposed to get, and then the Air Force had nice stuff, so I went over and got the pants. They didn't match anything, but that's all right. And he calls me in, he says, why didn't you know, I'm responsible for all these stuff in this unit. And he says, you're short 2 pair of pants. He says, I wish I had somebody back there I could depend on. I said, listen, whoever was the supply sergeant before didn't know what the hell he was doing. He lost a D8 cat on paper. Now, how can you lose a D8 cat? And he was the supply lieutenant. I didn't know. And I said, the dumb yo-yo didn't know what he was doing. Now, the captain smoked the pipe, and it's, you know, and the smoke is going out. He says, well, I was a supply lieutenant. Well, back to KP.
Did your fellow soldiers enjoy what you did for them?
Oh, sure. I got them stuff they weren't supposed to have. You know, you got to swap. I made a good supply sergeant, I'd say.
What were some of the things that you got for them?
Well, basically socks, pants on one occasion, but they wouldn't trade Arctic gear or anything, you know. Those guys had a cement barracks, 500-man barracks, and they walked through tunnels to get to the next building. They weren't even outside. They had a bowling alley over there, movie theater, all this stuff. Not us. We were stuck in a, you know, barracks. And we were responsible for repairing electric. We had electricians in our outfit. We had carpenters. And the unit next door to us laid out chickens. They were frozen for the next day. And somebody didn't check the boiler, and the boiler exploded and blew the building up. And every dog in the outfit had a chicken, was running around. Now you have to repair the building. Well, you can't drive a nail through a board at 55 below. The board is frozen. So you have to drill a hole in the board, then put the nail in and put the siding up. Well, when spring comes, expansion and contraction to the board, all the nails fell out and the siding fell off. So now you had to rebuild that thing again. And we used to have dog races on the river, sled dog races. They had a $2 window and a $4, but they were on the gold standard yet, you know. So everything you got was basically in, you know, in gold.
Did you bring home a lot of gold with you?
No. We got paid with paper, you know, the Army did. But downtown, it was a gold exchange. If you ran out of money, they had a scale on top of the bar, and you put the nuggets in there, and then you tell you what it's worth. And that's how they operate.
Was it hard to keep cars and trucks and your equipment like that running?
Well, you had a head bolt heater that you put on a car, which warms the heads on the engine, a dipstick heater, which was connected to the 120, that you dropped in the oil pan to keep that loose. And then you covered the whole front end with all the blankets you could find, including the biggest light bulb you could hang in there. Maybe it would get started. Now, once you build up friction on the tire, you had a flat tire because the air condensed. The same theory as when a farmer puts fluid in his tractor tires. You had to put fluid in the car tires. And to get the cat started, you had a pony motor, and you couldn't get any of them started. So if you needed one in the spring, you'd have to wait. Well, you couldn't use it anyway in the wintertime. But the trucks and everything, they kept them running round the clock. They needed it. They need, you know. But then when you need to use it in the spring, it shut down because it needs repairs.
What about the airplanes?
They kept them going. Hangar was heated. We didn't have any heat in our place, mainly because of fire. We did have a fire in the building once, and they couldn't get the door open. It was frozen in. They had to chop the ice loose, and by the time they got the ice chopped loose, the police went up. That's why we had to shut all the buildings off at midnight, or whenever we quit.
Did you feel any pressure or stress or anxiety from being up there and with the weather or?
Well, like I said, it's very, you know, when you're living in that thing, midnight light, you know, when you walk guard duty up there, the northern lights are so close when you're in that area that it sounds like static electricity going overhead. They make that kind of noise. And we had a rule that any dog loose in the camp was a wolf, and they come in to mix with the sled dogs, and we had to shoot them.
So there were a lot of wolves up there.
Oh, yeah.
Did you keep a personal diary?
No, I didn't want to remember. I swore I'd never go back, but we went back as a group, and we went up through the Inland Passage, and it took a 14-day, 7 days on land, or on water, and 7 days on land. We took the train, and nice trip.
Where all did you go?
Well, we stopped at where Ketchikan is the first port. There's no road in or out of this community. It's built on stilts over the water. And the streets, I mean, you look down and there's a hole in the street, you look right down at the water. The only way in and out is either by ship or with airplane. Next stop was Juneau, which is the capital. No road in or out. They can't, the mountain is nothing but granite, and you can't. If you try to build a road in those conditions, you drill a hole, put the charge in, and it just fractured the earth. It didn't come out. So then you had to clear it with a D8 cat in chunks. And that's how they build roads up there. Everything's on permafrost. It never, permafrost is down about 3 feet of that solid all the time. You can build a house right on top of the permafrost. You don't even need a foundation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you go with, it's okay. Did you go with any of your military friends?
Yeah.
How many of them?
We had 59 couples when we started. We always meet once a year, and one guy would host it. We went all over the country. So one lived in New York, one lived someplace else, and then we'd all go and get together. And now we've been going down to Branson, Missouri as a group, but there's only 5 couples left. We're all getting older.
Any of those places that you went to on that cruise, did you see any of those when you were stationed up there, besides Fairbrant things?
Yeah, we went.
I'm sorry. That's okay.
She got a smartphone.
I don't know how to use it yet. That's okay.
If that's a recording, you're going to have to take all this stuff out.
We can.
We have a smart, this is off the track, but we have a new car that has Bluetooth in it. My son programmed all the phone numbers. It recognizes a male voice, right? She goes to use it, and the thing says, talk softer. And it goes through all of this, So she got mad and cussed at it, and it shut down. Wouldn't even talk to us. The next day, she's in there again, she's going to use this thing, and she dial by number, and the damn thing took it. Smart car.
So you saw Fairbanks, and were any of the other stops places that you had seen when you were stationed up there?
Yeah, there's a place called North Pole, Alaska, and it's outside of Fairbanks, probably about 10 miles. And if you send a letter up there, they'll postmark at North Pole and send it back. So the kids get, something back from the North Pole. A lot of people don't know that, but yeah. And there's a place called Circle City at the end of the highway. You can't go any, that's it. That's the end. Was then. There's a motel up there. And there's a hot spring. Comes out of the warm water, comes out of the ground. You can swim at 55 below zero, but you don't spend any time going from point A to point B. I mean, you're but it's weird. I learned how to ski up there.
You did.
Yeah, Army had a rope pull. You'd hang on the rope, go up the mountain, and just ski down.
How long did you ski?
Yeah, they had that on weekends, you know, they take the truck and go up to the, that's the only thing you could do, you know, play cards.
Were you able to stay in touch with your family? Was it very easy to stay in touch?
Oh,
with
yeah,
them?
we handle the mail. We got mail all the time. Now, when it's extremely cold like that, it comes. This camp lays between two mountain ranges, the Brooks Range and the Alaskan Range. And when cold comes in the valley, it hangs. It doesn't move out. So you can have 55 below zero for 3 weeks straight. Then it'll move out and you get 30 below and you're taking stuff off because it's warm. If you can believe, you know, warmer than it was. And the coldest night we ever had up there on the porch was 69 below.
What was the warmest that you ever got?
Oh, it gets warm in the summertime, but it doesn't get extremely hot. They have a dairy there with cows that never get outside. You know, they keep them inside, and it's a steam heated barn, but they get $5 back then it was $5 a quart.
So everything pretty much has to be flown in.
Yes.
It's difficult to get
Right.
fresh.
Right. Now with the ice fog, it forms, and if you're driving a car, it forms ice on your windshield. You can't see where you're going. So you got to stay home during the ice fog thing. Airplanes don't land during ice fog either. So your meat supply stops until the ice fog lifts. So we were crossing we had a moose crossing the rifle range one day, and we shot the moose and brought it back to the cook shack, and I said, now cook it. Well, these guys are sheet metal guys, and the damn thing tasted like sheet metal, everything they cooked. Then we had to cook, the drunker you got, the better he could cook.
So did you have plenty of supplies?
Yeah, most of the time. The K rations up there were dry. You know, had to add water or something to it because of the cold. You know, powdered milk, terrible. Powdered eggs is worse. And then on Sunday they had SOS. I'm sure you know what that is.
I bet you don't need that anymore.
No, never.
Is there anything from being in the service that you ate and had to eat quite a bit that you won't eat at this point?
Spam, I mean, forget it. We had a lot of that. Canned meat, you know.
Did you do or
You
have?
know, we used to check the cook shack to see what they were going to have. Well, there's a creek not too far away from the base. And they gave you fishing equipment. You want to go fishing, you can go fishing. But because of the bears, you had to go in twos. You get between a sow bear and a couple of cubs, you're dead. That's it. Because these bears, they have one mounted in the University of Alaska at Fairbanks. He's 14 feet high. He weighs a ton. And if you get between that and, you know, you're gone. We had one guy got killed up there by a bear. But he went out by himself. Anyway, the creek is, it's Arctic water, 32 degrees, and they have what they call a grayling fish. It's a trout, Arctic trout. I think it's a big purple dorsal fin. excellent eating because the meat is so solid. So we'd get a pound of butter from the cook shack, catch us a bunch of trout, and we'd eat trout instead of that stuff he was putting on.
Do you eat fish today?
Oh yeah, I like fish.
Did
Salmon, we had a lot of salmon.
A lot of salmon.
King crab, Alaskan king crab, very good. You could buy all you could haul away for $5 in 1950. What is a tough country.
Did you have anything that you kept for special for good luck or anything like
No.
that?
No.
You talked about movies being entertainment, the only entertainment that you had, and that you played cards and you went skiing. Was there anything else you did for entertainment?
All right, that's about it. Well, the movies, you know, remember the movie Niagara with Marilyn Monroe, and she rolled over in that bed? The guy next to me is holding my hand. He grabs my hand. He said, "Look at that." I says, "How long you been here?" He says, "Too damn long." I said, "What's too long?" 14 months. I said, "Well, get away from me." Even the Eskimos started to look good, but they don't take a bath. Eskimos do not take a bath. They put fish oil on their skin so it doesn't crack in the extremely cold weather. Now, this is nice if you like fish, but no. If they offer you a piece of fish, then it's a sign of friendship or something. But
What did you take any leaves? Did you go on a leave?
no, only one time when I stayed with that Eskimo family.
Did they live in an igloo?
No, they lived in a cabin down in Homer, Alaska, which is down on the coast. It's a fishing village. That's their only livelihood. So everybody works at the cannery. Even the kids go out in a little boat and they drag a net, and the salmon fish goes into the net, and they, you know, and they get $1 a piece. Every fish they bring in. Now salmon they start out with the humpy salmon comes up first. Then the silver salmon migrates, and then the kings come in last. So for a king salmon, they got $5 a piece. Now the natives up there are allowed to fish with a fish wheel. The current pushes it's like a cup, a basket, and the flow of the water pushes these around on an axle. And then a fish gets caught in this thing and hits a board and slides down the board and goes into a live box. And he sits there watching the money go into the live box, and he takes it over to cannery. But that's what they do up there in the river. And there was a lot of gold mines up there.
Did you pan for gold?
Yeah, I have. Got $12 worth. Gold dust.
Did you feel like you struck it rich?
Well, it was, you know, it's a real fine gold dust, and unless you get an awful lot of it, well, you know.
You shared with us some of the pranks that you did. Do you have any others that you'd like to share?
Not in service, but in the state police, I have lots of stories.
So you, after you were in the service, you went into the state police.
1957.
So you got out of the service when?
1950, what year was that? 2? Yeah, 52.
So between 1952 and 1957, what did you do?
Oh, I had a lot of crazy jobs. I lived in Chicago. I was a sales engineer for a while for Chicago Rivet Machine Company. I worked for, a company that made laboratory equipment as a sales engineer. I worked in a nylon stocking factory once, size 10.5 and 11 long. That was me. That lasted 2 weeks.
Were others discharged with you when you got out of
Yes.
service? How many were discharged with you?
Oh, the entire company did, but only 75 of us were left.
So did the war end at that time? Or did they
No.
close the company down?
No, it no longer exists because we tried to find it. We went back to see if we could find the old camp. It's a drainage ditch now. I thought of it that way when I was there. And the highway, well, the runway for the aircraft is now part of the highway system. So it's all gone.
So all of you were discharged at the same time?
Yeah, at Camp Carson, Colorado. And then we were supposed to, they always take a picture, x-ray to make sure you no TB or anything like this. They take a blood test before they'll let you out. Well, I met this kid in basic training, and we both put in for cadre because we didn't want to go to Korea. We had no idea we were going to wind up in Alaska, but it was hot and heavy in Korea at the time. So he put in for cadre, which is the position of a drill instructor. He'd stay behind and teach the new kids. Well, he made it and I didn't. And I was pulling out of the company area in a 2.5-ton dump truck, and he's waving his hanky at me. He said, "Give my love to the Eskimo girls, ha ha." See? I said, "Ed, someday I'm going to get even." Well, 6 months later, he showed up in my outfit. And I said, "You remember waving that hanky at me when I was pulling up?" "Yeah." I said, "Get at the end of the line." So I gave him 2 left boots, a wool blanket that was shrunk up with moth holes in it. Finally, I felt sorry for him, so I gave him the right and the left finally. We got to be very good friends. And we palled around after we got out of the service. And I introduced him to his wife as a blind date. Married her, and I was the best man. And he was best man at my wedding. Yeah.
So was he from Illinois?
Yeah. Yeah. Now he lives in Florida. After we got out, he called me one day and he says, "Have you got $10,000? I said, "No way." "Too bad." He says, "I'm getting into a thing called plastic injection molding." I said, "What are you going to do with that stuff?" "I'm going to make pails." I said, "Ed, pails are made out of galvanized iron, steel. You know how many plastic pails there are in the world?" Wow. He made a lot of money. He sold the company and then, moved to Florida, living high on the hog,
So after you got out of the service, did you go back to school at all?
No.
So you didn't use the GI Bill?
No, I didn't. I should have, but I didn't do it.
And you became a state trooper.
1957.
Did you take advantage of any of the benefits that the military
Now,
provided?
because this goofy governor we have is playing with pensions, we're going to lose our health benefits. I paid in 9.5% of my salary went into that pension fund. They pilfered it. They never replaced it. That's why they got the problem. So I don't know what we're going to do for health insurance. I have no idea. He's trying to break the union, that's what he's trying to do. And I retired from the state police under the old system, where they took the highest 4 years averaged them out, and that's what you retired at. Now they don't do that. They start at $60,000 a year with 26 and a half years of service, and they retired 80% of the last day's pay, which is a lot of money. That's why we're in the trouble we are today with the pension system. I think what they ought to do is just grandfather us old guys in, because I retire at $1,700 a month. It took me 28 years to get to 32,500. Now they start at 60 grand. But now you have to have college. I didn't have to have college then. In fact, there was no building, no academy. We trained on the fairgrounds. They had us in the Emerson building in the attic. So there was 89 in the class. So then I wanted to go back to Chicago because I was from Chicago. Well, they ran out of openings, so I didn't get Chicago. And I figured, well, Elgin has got to be close to Chicago, so I'll go for Elgin. Didn't get that either. So I wound up in District 1. It's from Sterling, Illinois. So I called my wife. I says, pack the bags. I says, we're going to a place called Sterling, Illinois. She says, how far west of Madison Street is that damn Sterling? I says, I have to look at the map. I don't even know.
Did you join any veteran organizations?
Yeah. The DAV, Disabled American, they'd take me and say, I'm not disabled, but they needed the populace. I belong to the American Legion now. That was started by all retired state troopers. So it's, the state police were started in 1922, April 1st, April Fool's Day. Guess what? Okay. And it was formed, the only road that we had when it was formed in 1922 was a road north and south, which they call the hard road. That's where the hard road came in because it was made out of cement. And we were called the Illinois State Highway Maintenance Police in 1922. So that it evolved into what we have today.
Has anyone ever thanked you for serving our country?
No. There was nothing, you know, they didn't even recognize us when we got out of the service. You know, it was like, who are you? Where were you at? You know, it's a forgotten war. We lost 55,000 people over in that damn Korean War.
So how did that make you feel?
Lousy, because I served the country and nobody knew anything about it or didn't care about it. That's what bothered me. You know, what am I doing over there? Wasting my time.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or military in general?
Well, I don't know. I kind of resented being pushed into something that I didn't volunteer for. You know, I got drafted. Your friends and neighbors that, you know, I looked at that, I said, I don't have any friends and neighbors that are going to send me up there, you know.
What were you doing when you were drafted? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was working for a subsidiary of Otis Elevator Company. I made the brakes.
What was your draft number? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's on here. It's US, which means I got drafted. And the number is 55133-334. Easy to remember.
Would you encourage young men and women to enlist today?
That's a good question. You know, right now in the turmoil in the Far East, no.
You said you have a son that is in the service.
Right.
And he's a lieutenant colonel?
Yeah.
And
He started right out of high school. He served 4 years in the MPs, military police. And then he got out of that and stayed in the National Guard. And then he stayed in the National Guard. He was working at the Leavenworth prison, federal lockup, when he got notified that, you know, they activated him for 3 years. And they were slated to go to Bosnia. And he didn't want to go to Bosnia, so he put in for Homeland Security with something new. And through that, he started as a captain and then made major, and then he made lieutenant colonel through Homeland Security. So now he's, they put him in charge of a school over in Salina, Kansas, where they teach the people how to handle heavy equipment, drive trucks and bulldozers and things like that. So he's running a school. So
you said he served in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
And how did you feel when he told you he was going over?
Well, you know, I was worried about him, sure. And he couldn't tell me what he was doing over there either because he was behind the lines. So that's a tough spot to be in. But he came out all right, so.
Is your view of government the same before you went into service as it is now after you've been into service?
Well, I think everybody's upset with the government the way it's running. I am too. You know, why can't they get along? Why can't they solve these problems instead of going by this party versus that party? It's, you know, gridlock. But I didn't want to see that Romney get in there either. He's a boy that wants to go for an ego trip. And he's got all the money in the world. Why take on an ulcer job? And that's what it is.
How do you feel about how war is depicted in movies today?
Well, it's a lot of Hollywood. It's not what you really are put up against. I think they dramatize the thing too much. Saving Private Ryan was pretty close to what it was, or is. I put in for the honor flight to go to Washington, and I got accepted, so I'm leaving in April. They ran out of World War II, now they're taking Korean vets.
So will you be leaving out of Springfield?
Yeah.
Very nice. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going.
What is your opinion of war and history taught in school today?
That's a good question. Do you think they're teaching the real thing? I don't. You know, you go back to the Civil War, that was a pretty tough war. You know, history, you know. Look what Lincoln did to take on, he had the slave problem, he had everything else. And he pulled it up. Roosevelt did the same thing. You know, the Depression hit, and he started a CCC camp. Now we got all these wetbacks, or whatever you want to call them, It's fine if they come through the front door. I don't like this idea of coming through the back door. Not only that, but then we're taking, Illinois is the second state that takes most of these people in, and it's costing you as a citizen to pay for all this. They get their medication, all that stuff is free.
So do you
And it's not right.
So do you think that the children today in school should learn more about the wars between, let's say, World War II, Korean War, Vietnam, all of
Right.
those? Do you think our kids are learning about those in school today?
I don't know if they are or not. I went to Kmart one time and the electric went down, and she says, well, I have to get the manager. I said, where's the manager? Well, he's out to lunch. I said, I'm not gonna, give me my 37 cents and I'll be out of here. Don't even know how to add and subtract. The electric tells them what to. I said, what are you gonna do when you run out of batteries? And they're taught in school too, the same damn thing. They got this battery thing operated. Hey, you gotta know how to make it without all this stuff. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Let's get back to the basics. No more tennis and no more of this other, Well, it's sad because the kids can't add and subtract. Come on. I went to a Catholic grammar school, and the nun got so mad at this kid, she had a globe of the world and hit him over the head with a globe of the world, put a dent. And then she was discussing the river, and I says, it's right in the dent, right there. See? I've always been a cut up.
Okay. What is the most positive thing you took away from your experience in the service?
Well, those are things that I would have never done before. If I wasn't drafted, I wouldn't have wound up in Alaska. I wouldn't have shot a moose. I wouldn't have learned how the Eskimos lived. The camaraderie we had in the barracks was great. We were all stuck with the same problem. Yeah.
And how long were you stationed in Alaska?
2 years. I never got home.
Did you have...
Now, when I did get home, I had to take shots to thin my blood out because your blood gets thicker in a hostile environment like that, in the cold. Yeah. Of course, they called it a dry cold. Well, cold is cold. I don't care wet or dry.
Did you, like the holidays, Thanksgiving and, Christmas, those
Well,
type-
it's very depressing at that time of the year.
Did you have celebrations with your...
Oh, yeah, well, we all shared what we got in the mail. Some guy got some cookies, some guy got something else. And we'd all get together and have a...
What was the most negative thing about your time in the military?
negative thing. I didn't think they needed to dump us out for 3 days. That kind of bugged me a little bit. But you learn to live with, if you're worried about, if you're worried about things that you couldn't fix, forget it. That's water under a bridge. Worry about things you can't fix. Then you have a better outlook. See, I was on that state police for 28 years. I picked up some pieces in my day, But you forget it. You leave it on the street where it belongs. So I never discussed anything with the family. Why? Yeah, I got depressed in that job too. What bothered me was the kids. They didn't cause the problem. The adults caused the problem. He had a little boy. His dad was a guard someplace, and he had a .44 caliber weapon hanging in a holster in the closet, loaded. This kid found it. He's playing cowboys and Indians. He shot his baby sister with a .44. In the head yet. Scattered pieces all over the place. They're terrible. So that's what you walk into sometimes. I had a sergeant call me one time. He says, "You have a lousy outlook lately. Why is that?" I said, "Where do you put me? You put me on the west side of Rockford. That's all, blacks, and you got the car thieves living over there. You got the ladies of the night, all the crap. I never get a dog call. I always got a problem." So they had a colored tavern over there, which the liquor commission would not shut down because they didn't want to scatter them all over the city. So there was a knife fight in this joint every Saturday night. The county was chicken. They wouldn't even go in there. So I had to go in there. First thing I did was take out the shotgun. I pull in there, take the shotgun out, lock the car door. You're surrounded by enough people, all I can see is eyeballs and teeth. All right. So I jacked one in the chamber. I said, "Listen, I don't like it here. I was sent here. And the first guy that tries to jump me from the back, I'm going to change the color of the damn building." And that's how you had to go in there.
Well, Mr. Henry, is there anything that you would like to add?
Oh, can I get a copy of all this? That'd be great for the kids. I can leave it behind.
And what I would like to tell you is, I would like to thank you for the time that you served our country.
Thank you very much.
And I would also like to thank you for the time that you've given us today for your interview. I know that you brought some pictures, and I would like to see them.
Look.
Thank you.